And I'm back. Okay, so here is video. What are we on now, guys? I think we're on number 5. Video number 5 in a segment on how to make your octopus for a preemie. Okay, so on the last video, we went ahead and went through rounds 15 through 24, showed you how to do it, your decreases and, you know, all sorts of fun stuff. So if you haven't seen that video, please, you know, go back and start from the beginning. Unless you just need help with this particular part. This particular part, we're going to go over stuffing your head and then making the plug. The plug is this part right here, and I'm just going to see if time permits if I can do the tentacles on this video. If not, I'll do the tentacles on a separate video. So we have our finished head. Now it's important because as I've indicated before, the diameter of the head does not matter, or the circumference does not matter. What does matter is the height of your head. And so at your head, according to the the pattern instructions and guide, the head should be between 2.5 inches and 3.5 inches at this point. Okay, so you know, I know we've done some checks along the way. We checked it, you know, after round 14 to make sure it was roughly 1.5 inches. If you're roughly 1.5 inches, then, you know, these next decreasing rounds should be okay in terms of getting you to the right height. And sure enough, we are right just under, just around 2.5 inches, maybe 2 3/4 inches. So we are good to go. All right. So we're going to put this little puppy away, and we are going to stuff the head. I'm going to stuff the head, and I use a screwdriver to stuff my head. You can use, you know, really whatever tool you need to get it to where you need. The stuffing I'm using is polyfill premium polyester. Showed that on the very first video. As far as how much do I use? A lot, you know. At first I will just stuff with my finger, you know, with my pinky, because it's pretty much almost the only one that can fit in there at this point. So we'll stuff with your finger until you kind of can't stuff no more. With your finger, and if that's just too much, just, you know, I just start with my screwdriver. You know, some people use dowels. That's perfectly fine. You know, maybe a blunt end of something instead of a sharp. You know, I've got this. I wonder if that would work. I don't know. I've never tried it, but it probably would. Probably help. You know, keep from you stabbing yourself. You don't want to stab yourself. But use whatever is the safest for you, because you slip and you poke yourself and you can cut yourself with a screwdriver. So, you know, this isn't a race, guys, you know, so just, you know, take your time making, you know, these things. I'd rather you spend days making one or weeks making one than you race through to try to finish one in, you know, 2-3 hours, and then it fails, you know, and then we can't use it. I mean, because I mean, that's just very disheartening to have an octo that, you know, didn't make the cut. So we're just stuffing. And we're stuffing, and we're stuffing, and we're stuffing, and we're stuffing. And we're putting as much stuffing up in the head as we can. And I've got this camera in my face, so I'm hopefully not going to stab myself while I'm doing this. And you can see there's quite a bit of stuffing. We use a lot of stuffing. A lot more than you really think would fit into this tiny bag. Generally speaking, about, you know, the quart. I've never I've never laid it all out. But I do know that I have weighed the head before and weighed the head after. And my heads generally are around 14 grams. I use my kitchen scale, showed that in the materials video. And my heads are generally around 14 grams. And once I stuff the head is about 38 grams. So, you know, doing the math, that's about 24 grams of stuffing that I use in my heads. All right. And the reason I did the weighing was because I wanted to see how much yarn I needed for each phase, right? So I weighed the head that was empty. Then I weighed the head with the stuffing on it. And then I weighed the entire octopus finished. And the difference between the stuffed head and the weighed head, I mean the finished head, the difference between the stuffed finished head and the finished octopus, okay, I think I said that right, is what I need for my tentacles. And so when I have all these little itty bitty balls and I want to know whether or not I have enough yarn to finish the tentacles, then I will weigh it. And so I know that I need somewhere around 20 grams of yarn to get through all the tentacles. We want 8 tentacles. We don't want 9 tentacles. We don't want 7 tentacles. We need 8. If you end up with 9 tentacles, take a tentacle out. It will not pass. The standards are what the standards are. We must comply with the pattern from the national group. That's what I follow. I follow all the rules from the national group. They're there for a reason. And when it comes to these guys, I do not I don't go and do my own thing. I go with what the national group specifies for all this stuff. Okay, as you can see, I put in a lot of stuffing in there, and this is hard. I mean, it is, can you hear that? It is hard as a rock. That's what we want. Because we stuff it to no ends, the stitches can come apart. That's why it's so important to do the yarn under all the way around, okay? I'm looking at it and I'm liking what I see. Everything looks good. The final test will be when it gets cooked. And then, you know, we'll see how it is then. Because the inside will soften up after it gets cooked. So that's why it needs to be super duper hard, because the finished octopus, this cannot compress. This has no compression. There's a no compression rule. But the finished octopus can do a 1-finger compression test. The finished as in it's already been cooked and cleaned. And so the finished one can have a little bit of give, and when they cook, they will soften up a little bit. So for that reason, it needs to be super hard right here. Okay, so we are done with, give me 1 second. I'm going to pause for 1 quick second while I get something. Okay, so I had to go get some yarn. I'm going to go ahead and I went through and saw, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to use this one because I like it. Like I said before, I put my balls into a ball, and I make sure that I have no knots in them, so I don't have to worry about knots in a tentacle. But we will talk about that under the tentacles, because remember, we can't have any knots anywhere along the end of a tentacle. If you happen to come up with a knot in the middle of a tentacle, you have to undo the tentacle, tie up at the top, the base of the head, and then weave in everything, and then make a new tentacle. Okay, so I've got my scale here, my like 90-year-old scale. And I'm going to weigh this little guy. This is 28 grams, so that's more than enough to do my tentacle. So I'm good to go to start with this particular ball. And got my head over here and stuffed, ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and make magic ring and make the plug. Okay, so magic ring, once again, magic ring, go around 2 times on that one, go around, then go around 1, 2, I do double on this one as well, and then I go here, bring it around 1 time, bring around the back, the yarn, okay, do 1 stitch right there, and then just like the top of the head, we are going to single crochet into the magic ring, and once again we do not want to do super tight stitches on the first round, because then that makes it difficult to put 2 single crochets in each single crochet on the second round. So these single crochets are going to be regular yarn over single crochets, and they're going to be a little on the loosey-goosey side. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is what we need for the plug. Okay, now, nice. You see how nice and kind of a little bit bigger they are than, you know, normally you would see, right? Okay, so so they're a little bit on the loose side, not too loose, just the right size. You'll figure it out. We've got 5 in there, and so we are going to go ahead and close it up. Here we go. We're going to remember we have an outside loop, we have an inside loop. We want to figure out which one is the outside, which is this one. We're going to pull that outside, bring that inside loop together, close that up, right? And then pull the tail and really, really close up that hole completely. All right. A long time ago I stopped putting a marker on this one because this, I usually do this in such a short time that I don't lose track. But I'm going to put a marker on that last one. So we've got 5 single crochets, and we are going to go around, and we're going to do 2 single crochets in every single crochet from round 1. So you'll notice I'm using my Amour hook. I probably should use the other one, but I'm gonna use this one so I can see with the camera. Now from here on out we are doing yarn under, and 2. I know that the pattern calls for a slightly different variation on making the plug, and there is more than one acceptable method of attaching the plug. This is the method I have found is the most efficient. It requires the least amount of knots and weaving in loose ends. It keeps everything, you know, very, very tight, and I'm all about, if I do not have to deal with tying things in and weaving things in, I personally think that's safer, you know. So you know, for me this is a safer way of doing it, because everything, all loose ends get hidden inside the head. I mean, really, so far we've tied the eyes, right? We had that loose stitch at the top, but that stays in there. It's already locked in because we used the double magic ring. This one we tied it in, you know, just a little stitch tied in there. The loose end is in there. The tail from this plug is going to go inside the head. We're not going to see it again because, you know, we don't need to tie that in anywhere. It's already the double magic ring, so it's not going to come apart. So the only tail I end up having to weave through the head is the very last one. So to me, this is just really efficient. Saves time. We're on to the next round, which is going to be 1 single crochet in the first one, and then 2 in the second. Okay, so we started with 5, right? So then that was round 1. Round 2 is 2 single crochets in each one, so 5 times 2 is 10, right? And so now we're on to round 3. Round 3 is 1 single crochet in 1, and then 2, which is an increase on the second one, okay? And so we have that. And we're going to go all the way around. Now, you're going to be like, okay, well, you're increasing by 5, Irene. Okay, yes, we're increasing by 5. So that means that we had, 5, and then we had 10, and then we'll end up with 15. I lost count because I'm talking. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Let me see. Start over here. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. Gotta get another one in there. 2. And so we add another 5 to 10, we're going to be at 15. But hey, Irene, we have 16 here. Okay, so I do something a little different. And there's a couple of different things that you can do. You can either skip a stitch when you're tying the plug to, when you're attaching the plug to the head. You can skip a stitch on the head, or you can go through one stitch twice. Does that make sense? You go through the same one of these, and then you go through the head 2 times using the same stitch from the plug, right? What I do is at the very end, the second to the last one, okay, because I've been going 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, right? Or 1 increase, 1 increase, 1 increase. On the very last 2, instead of doing 1 single crochet in the second to the last stitch of the previous round, I put 2 in that one. Okay, I put 2 in that one instead of 1. So I'm increasing on that where the pattern doesn't call for it, but I do. That's what I do. And then I put another increase on the last one, like you're supposed to, right? You following me, right? I think you are. Pretty sure. Okay. And so what that ends up doing is giving me 16. So I don't have to skip. I don't have to skip any stitches on my head, and I don't have to go through the same, hole twice if I don't want to skip. Because I have my 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You follow me? Okay. So now we are ready to attach to the head, okay? In the materials list, you remember I brought out this green guy, and this is my green clover amour, and this particular one is 2.25. It's smaller than the one that I've been using. This is helpful if you are having a tough time with getting the plug attached to the bottom of the head, okay? How do we attach the plug to the bottom of the head? I don't cut, I don't tie, I don't do anything. I continue with the same thing, with the same ball, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and proceed. I'm going to go to the next hole, and I'm going to go to the bottom of the head. I'm going to find a stitch. It really doesn't matter where you start, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and push through the 2, and it is super tight, okay? Got it? I'm going to go ahead and pull, yarn under, pull up through both the head and the plug. Follow? And then go ahead and pull through and finish off that single crochet. And so that's how you're going to proceed. Go through both on the plug, go through both on the head of the next single crochet stitch, and pull through both and pull through both. And you're going to do that 16 times because we did that back-to-back increase on the last 2 of the plug. Will have exactly the 16 that we need. Here gets a little tricky because this is where it was, the beginning and the end. So this one's, I tend to have a tough time here. But let's see if we can push through. We're going to do the next one. I might have to switch to the smaller one. I got it. There we go. And then okay, so just for demonstration, I'm going to switch to the green one to show you. I mean, like I said, you can do everything with just one hook. You don't need to use 3 different ones like I do from time to time, but you know, entirely up to you. The smaller hook has a really more pointier end. I just poked myself. Be careful. And no, that's not me whistling, that's my son. Okay, this is the tail. I'm going to go ahead and before I close this off, I'm going to shove this tail underneath and inside the head. We'll never see it again. It just goes into the head, it stays that way. Alrighty. And just keep going because we're almost done with the plug. And so you see what I mean? I mean, it's just a seamless operation. You know, I'm switching colors on my tentacles. You don't need to. If you want to, you can use the same color, but I'm using the tentacle color to create the plug and then attaching it to the head, and then I go from there. You know, yes, the base of the head is going to be a little bit of a different color because it's going to follow the tentacle color, but really it's not a big deal. I don't think anybody would even notice it had I not mentioned it. So I know some people do the plug the same color as the head. Personally, I prefer this method because if I do the plug the same color as the head, then I have to tie the tentacle color onto the plug, and this is complicated. I'm just not a fan of complications. So okay, I'm down to the last one. The last one is going to be a little bit tricky. I'll go through those two, and then I have to kind of get my hook back inside. And it really doesn't want to because it's kind of already closed. But I got it. Boom. Voila. Okay. And we are done with the plug being attached. And we are ready to make our tentacles. And you know what? This video is already 23 minutes long. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. And then I'll go ahead and make a video for the tentacles, and then that will be our last one. So on the next video, we're going to do the tentacles, and then how to finish off your octopus. You know, take a look at your octopus. Make sure you keep looking at it, because I mean, if you see something that really, you know, pops out at you that shouldn't be there, it would be, you know, fruitless to just keep going. So anyway, I'll stop for now, and I will be back with the final segment on how to make your own octopus for a preemie.